This summer, billionaires have taken off into space in their private rockets. If they are lucky, they will return to Earth. Meanwhile, the rest of us have remained here below on a planet that is in distress. Run your hands over the globe, a friend of mine said. Where does it hurt? Everywhere. The magnitude of what global climate change is doing to Earth is difficult to take in fully. Earth is big, we are small, but our collective impact is profound, and we are feeling it everywhere. You felt it here in Texas last winter during the historic storms when the power grid failed for weeks and people died in the freezing cold. We are feeling it where my wife and I live on Puget Sound, known as the Salish Sea to our indigenous neighbors. The unprecedented heat dome in early July led to hundreds of deaths in the Northwest. The temperatures reached over 120 degrees in British Columbia, where in 1 week, 700 people died in one region. The heat scorched plants and trees, and the marine biologists estimate that nearly 1 billion shellfish were killed in the Salish Sea at low tide. It does not smell sweet here on Willachet Bay like we're used to smelling evergreens and moss, rainforest, lusciousness, and sweet summer berries. There is no way to describe it except to say it smells of death. I thought the earth remembered me, the poet Mary Oliver writes. She took me back so tenderly. Can we hope for this? Can we hope for Earth to remember us and take us back, we who have flown so far away from her, as surely as the billionaires in their rocket ships, as if Earth's nest were not essential for our lives and for all life? In last week's sermon, I introduced the theological concept of spiritual impasse. A spiritual impasse occurs when we discover that what we have believed and based our life on cannot handle a crisis that has come to our lives. Our beliefs are inadequate for the situation. And when this happens, our options are: 1, to deny our experience and hold on to our beliefs. 2, to abandon our beliefs. And 3, to become theologians and rework our beliefs to meet the challenges of our situation. Spiritual impasse can occur not only on a personal level, but collectively. And global climate change presents us with a collective spiritual impasse. We cannot go on as we are without something having to give. Let's consider the 3 options in detail. Option 1, deny what is happening and hold on even more tightly to old beliefs. This is the choice that the climate deniers are making. Many of them are ardent right-wing Christians clinging fiercely to the patriarchal and hierarchical idea that God created the earth for humans to subdue and dominate. For them, there is nothing to worry about. Their beliefs tell them that severe weather is a good sign that the apocalypse is drawing near, when God will freeze or burn the sinners to death and rapture the true believers into a new heaven and a new earth. When policymakers in Congress and state legislatures hold these views, and a troubling number do, their beliefs have the power to hasten such an apocalypse. The danger their denial poses cannot be denied. My theological mentor and beloved teacher, John Cobb, has championed for decades the theological work that says no to these harmful Christian beliefs. But Cobb observes, conservative Christians are not the only ones who hold that the earth is ours to subdue. The dominant religious system of our time, he says, is capitalism. It has all the markings of religion, glittering temples and enlightened priests, a theory of human nature, and an unseen hand that will make everything all right. Many of us invest our lives in the benevolence of the market, and nearly all of us depend on it for our well-being. I am no exception. And I know capitalism is a source of many blessings. It fosters creativity, productivity, and abundant life in many ways. But as John Cobb and distinguished economists such as Herman Daly point out, its purpose is continual growth through increased consumption, and its operating theories account for only two forces, labor and capital. This leaves Earth out of the economic equations. Marxist and socialist economic theories are no better on this account. The flaw in all of them is the false and unquestioned assumption that Earth's resources are unlimited and free for human taking. Our economics is founded on the very same belief as right-wing Christianity. Clinging to this old belief will not do, and hoping that this belief will solve the very crisis it has created is not adequate. So let's consider option 2 in this collective spiritual impasse that we face. Option 2. Accept the reality of global climate change and abandon what we have believed. This is the choice of those who reject capitalism and even human society and civilization altogether and go off the grid, head for the wilderness, armed, if necessary, with guns and ammunition to fight off the hordes they expect will be coming after their stuff. Granted, this is the extreme, but it's out there, and it is a classic American spiritual response to crisis. If resources are threatened or society is failing, discard the old way of life, embrace a new religion, light out for the territories, and find a new world to inhabit. This is the colonizer's mindset. And consider this. Are the billionaires heading to outer space, or those imagining colonizing Mars, significantly different from the survivalists in northern Idaho? One can try to escape the social reality of interdependent human life, but this requires believing in a fantasy. and it abandons most of one's fellow human beings. It is no accident that this option is aligned with white supremacy. Its proponents tend to have no care for the survival of Black and brown people, and they disavow their dependence on others. This option will not do. So let's consider option 3. Face reality and critically rework our shared fundamental beliefs. Take on the theological task of creatively transforming our frameworks of meaning in light of our experience in ways that will heal and sustain rather than harm and deplete life. Surely this is where we need to be as we face global climate change. For global climate change is happening now, not in the future, but now, right now. And it is happening not just because of natural causes, but because of human activity. In this collective spiritual impasse, we need to evolve our economic theories, transform our technologies, establish policies for the common good and politics for the common good that includes the good of the earth, and foster education that does more than prepare people to function as consumers and competitors in a traditional capitalist society, but rather prepares them to be collaborators and co-creators in abundant life for all. The good news is that many people in many sectors of society are choosing these options and doing this work. They are creating hope for all of us. And the significant work undergirding all of this we need to do is that we need to forge a new spiritual foundation for our society's values. We need to reimagine the nature of God. Here is where the greening of God comes in. The greening of God says no to the transformation, the greening of God says no to the old patriarchal God above and beyond this earth, who created the world for humans to dominate and who blesses conquest, colonization, and unfettered consumerism. The greening of God says yes to the transformation of our understanding of God to a new sense of the divine, a vision of the divine that arises from within the body of earthly life itself, and even our own bodies. As far back as the 12th century, the woman mystic Hildegard of Bingen forged an alternative understanding of God. We find her words in our Unitarian Universalist hymnal, "I am that great and fiery force, sparkling in everything that lives." Hildegard's spirituality was oriented to what she called viriditas, the greening energy of life. She spoke of what happens when humans fail to discern the face of the holy within all earthly things. She composed a lamentation of the elements in which the elements cry out, quote, "We can no longer keep going as before and complete our natural course as intended, for humans twist, crunch and grind us in a mill from top to bottom. We, the elements, the winds and water, stink to high heaven like the plague itself. We are almost starving from hunger for true equilibrium. Unquote. For Hildegard, greening is the interactivity of earth, air, water, and fire, which mingle to form myriad expressions of life. Thus, divinity is manifest in all the diversity of life, difference, transience, multiplicity, abundance, flow. All this is the greening of God, creating, sustaining, and transforming itself in unfolding patterns of beauty. And we humans are part of it. We are Vereditas in human form. Not simply fallen sinners, we are to be treated with reverence as sacred beings. We are like the trees, Hildegard says. Our souls function like the trees' sap. Our intelligence functions like the green branches and leaves. Our desires and our sexuality function like a tree's blossoms, and our spiritual maturity extends itself to others as nourishing fruit. To feel ourselves alive with greening energy is to feel ourselves as part of the divine reality. Today, in the voices of women theologians all around the globe, the old god of domination and sacrifice is being replaced by something different. A divine energy that is reflected not in dying for love, not in power over or crucifying the body's emotions, desires, or needs, but in relational power that flows in and through all life. In her groundbreaking book, Sisters in the Wilderness, the womanist theologian Dolores Williams reorients God language to the experiences of women of color in the wilderness places of struggle for survival and thriving, seeking liberation from suffering and exploitation. Following the biblical story of Hagar, Williams says, the divine is discovered in acts of creativity, courage, solidarity, and joy. And the divine energy that supports people in resisting injustice and protecting life is found not above and beyond this world, in some transcendent realm of grace. Rather, it arises for the oppressed from within earthly existence itself, as it was for Hagar, who found water springing in the desert, a cooling breeze to refresh her, a tree of life offering shelter. In feminist and womanist theology, God moves earthward to indwell in everything. God is the ever-moving spirit of life, inviting us into wholeness, balance, and reciprocity. Ecofeminists, such as the brilliant Brazilian Iván Gabarra, working for the poorest of the poor, impacted by environmental racism, says, quote, "We will not speak of God above and beyond the world, but of life as the divine milieu. We will speak of life as a sacred reality that should be loved, respected, and preserved. For the invitation to love and mercy, she says, comes from within our very being. Within our flesh, there throbs an incredible attraction toward other beings. Plants, animals, forests, mountains, rivers, and seas from the most diverse combinations in the most remote and varied places attract one another, couple with one another, blend with one another, grow and feed on one another's lives, dying and rising in many ways within the complex life process to which all belong. Unquote. Dear friends, my message today is, it is vitally important now that we support and follow the lead of the very people that the climate deniers are trying to silence. Women of all colors, trans and queer folk, indigenous teachers and scientists, they show the way through our spiritual impasse. Let us be guided by them to return to earth in a new spirit, with a new spirit. It is assuredly possible for us to move through the chrysalis of transformation, for we are, after all, made from this earth, from humus, from which we get our name, human beings. Earth will remember us if we remember the earth. She will take us back tenderly. Listening in the dark to her, we will, as the poet says, vanish into something better. And we will not make this journey alone. All of Earth's greening powers will accompany us, collaborate with us, and congregate with us in sacred community, if we but choose this world, this life, this our blue boat home, to cherish, protect, renew, and sustain right here, right now. May it be so. Amen.